school bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, shattering the usual tranquility of an elementary school in Decent. Children eagerly packed their books, waiting at the school gate for their parents to pick them up. A familiar and peaceful scene. But on February 10th, 2025, that peace was forever broken. Before delving into the case, we provide the following information. The family has revealed the victim's identity as Kim Hanul. She was born on October 22, 2017. Her father stated that this decision was made in the hope that such a tragedy would never happen again. That day, 8-year-old Kim Hanul never made it through the school gates to return home. Within the very walls that were supposed to be an absolute safe haven, a horrifying tragedy unfolded. The place meant to be a second home, nurturing the souls of children, became the scene of an unforgivable crime. And the perpetrator of this crime was none other than a female teacher in her 40s, a person entrusted with the duty of protecting and educating young children. With a series of merciless knife strikes, she took Hanul's life, leaving behind an irreplaceable pain for the family and society as a whole. Today, we will take a deep dive into the case that shocked South Korea, the case that took the life of Kim Hanul in Daesan. Before we begin, please take a moment of silence to remember this little angel. The final moments of a little angel. At 4:30 p.m. on February 10th, 2025, 8-year-old Kim Hanul left her classroom with a small backpack on her shoulders. That afternoon, she had been engrossed in drawing and was excited to show her mother her latest artwork. As Hanul happily skipped toward the school gate, a familiar voice called out from the end of the hallway, "Hanul, I have a great book I want to show you." The one calling her was Myung, one of the school's teachers. She stood in front of the audiovisual storage room waving. "Come in for a moment," she urged. At 4:40 p.m., just 10 minutes later, Hanul unsuspectingly followed her teacher into the dimly lit, cramped storage room filled with old learning materials and equipment. The door gently closed behind them. Outside, school life carried on as usual. Students and teachers were busy with their own activities, completely unaware that behind that door, a tragedy was unfolding. Hanul's father later revealed that her phone was equipped with a parental monitoring app that allowed him to listen to surrounding sounds in real time without making a call. He said, "At around 4:50 p.m., I could no longer hear my daughter's voice. Instead, I heard an elderly woman breathing heavily as if she was running, followed by the sounds of a drawer opening and a bag zipper being pulled." Checking the location tracking app on Hanul's phone, her parents were alarmed. The signal remained inside the school, unmoving. Sensing that something was terribly wrong, they frantically called their daughter, but there was no answer. They kept trying, only to be met with an eerie silence. According to a briefing from the Daejeon Education Council on February 11th, at around 4:30 p.m. on February 10th, Hanul's caretaker received a call from the school bus driver, asking for the girl to be brought down from her second-floor classroom. However, 10 minutes later, the driver called back saying, "The child hasn't come down," and informed the parents. The school staff began searching for Hanul, but couldn't find her. By 4:50 p.m., the school contacted the parents, who then called the police. When Hanul's grandmother received the news, she rushed to the school. Her initial worry quickly turned to panic as she ran through the hallways, desperately calling her granddaughter's name until her voice became hoarse. As she neared the audio-visual storage room, she suddenly froze. Myung was standing there, unnaturally still, her face tense with anxiety. "Where is Hanul?" The grandmother cried out, her voice trembling with fear. Myung hesitated for a long moment before stammering, I don't know." Then she abruptly turned away, inserted a key into the lock, and secured the door shut. 20 minutes later, at 5:30 p.m., the heavy footsteps of the police echoed through the hallway, breaking the suffocating silence. Hanul's grandmother, her eyes filled with desperation, shakily pointed at the locked storage room. Officers rushed to the door, demanding it be opened, but Myung remained silent. Without hesitation, one officer took a step back and kicked the door with full force. The door burst open, and what lay beyond was a scene of horror. Hanul lay motionless on the cold floor. Her once pristine white uniform was now soaked in dark red stains. Her small hands, once so lively and full of creative energy, were curled up near her chest. Not far away, Myung sat slumped against the wall, trembling violently. Her wrists were covered in self-inflicted cuts. At 5:40 p.m., police rushed Hanul to the hospital. She was brought in with no pulse and was given CPR, but all life-saving efforts proved futile. At 6:35 p.m. on February 10th, Kim Hanul was pronounced dead. Meanwhile, teacher Myung had apparently attempted suicide. She was taken to the hospital and later confessed to the police. "I stabbed the child." According to the testimony, the teacher deliberately waited for the children to leave the classroom after school with the intention of dying together with one of them. "I told the last child to leave the class that I would give them a book and took them to the audiovisual room." The teacher later admitted to strangling and stabbing the student before attempting to stab themselves. Heartbreaking truths. In an interview with Yoongdo Ilbo, Hanul's father revealed his emotions, saying, "That morning, Hanul stepped out of the elevator and greeted me, and to this day it still feels like a dream. I can't believe it," he continued. "When we received the call that my daughter wasn't on the first floor, the police and school staff went out to search for her. But they didn't check the audio-visual room because it was usually locked. The after-school care classroom, where my daughter had been all day, and the audio-visual room, where she was attacked, were less than 20 meters apart. If only someone had watched over my daughter, just for a moment, as she left the after-school care class and walked down the hallway, this tragedy could have been prevented." Hanul's grandmother, the first to discover the crime scene, panicked as she recalled the moment in an interview with News One. "I felt as if I could just reach out my hand and the child would run to me." She added, "I was told that since I was the first to find the scene, I had to be immediately questioned by the police. I couldn't believe my granddaughter was gone, so I couldn't even cry." That morning, an innocent little girl, like any other day, carried her school bag and went to class. But she would never return home. Hanul's life was tragically taken at the hands of the very teacher she trusted. The woman who was supposed to guide and protect young souls instead cruelly took one away. Later reports revealed a heartbreaking truth. Ms. Myung, a 48-year-old teacher, had been struggling with severe depression since 2018. In December 2024, she took a leave of absence to seek treatment as her mental health deteriorated further. This leave was supposed to last 6 months, yet after just 3 weeks, she unexpectedly returned to teaching. What's shocking is that no one, not the school administration nor her colleagues, questioned her sudden return. After the tragedy, the public was horrified as alarming details surfaced. Warning signs had long been present, clear and repeated, yet no one paid attention. Myung had a history of erratic and violent behavior. Many colleagues had witnessed her sudden mood swings and impulsive, dangerous actions. At one point, she even twisted a colleague's arm right on campus. The school administration had been warned about her condition, and the education office was fully aware. Yet everything was ignored. Just 5 days before the incident, in a fit of rage, Myung vandalized school property. The next day, she attacked another teacher, grabbing their throat and nearly choking them. The school followed protocol by reporting the incidents to the education office and the police, but no one took action. On the morning of February 10th, the fateful day of Hanul's death, education officials visited the school. But instead of investigating Myung's condition, they merely met with the school administration, taking no measures to intervene. And just a few hours later, a young life was lost due to this deadly negligence. On February 11th, the police launched an immediate investigation. Myung's home, car, and computer at the school were thoroughly searched for any clues that could explain the cause and sequence of the incident. Her phone and laptop were sent to the forensic laboratory, where experts analyzed her browsing history to check for any signs that the attack had been premeditated. According to the investigation results, on the day of the incident, Myung drove to a kitchenware store about 2 kilometers from the school in the afternoon and purchased a weapon in advance. The knife was 28 centimeters long with a 16-centimeter blade. The autopsy results further reinforced initial suspicions. Hanul's body bore multiple fatal deep wounds, indicating that the perpetrator acted decisively without hesitation. This was not an accident, it was a deliberate act of murder. By February 12, 2025, the National Forensic Service had completed Hanul's autopsy report, confirming what her family had feared. The child had been brutally killed with multiple stab wounds. The cause of death was determined to be severe trauma, but what broke the investigators' hearts the most were the defensive wounds found on Hanul's tiny hands. In her final horrifying moments, she had bravely fought back, trying to protect herself, but she never stood a chance. Investigators are currently reviewing Myung's medical history, personal life, and behavior at work to gather more evidence of premeditation. However, efforts to determine a direct motive have stalled due to a lack of further statements beyond Myung's initial confession on the day of the crime. After the attack, she attempted suicide and underwent vein ligation surgery. She remains in the intensive care unit of a university hospital in Seogu, Daejeon, on oxygen support. A police official stated, "Direct questioning is currently difficult, but we are closely monitoring her condition to proceed as soon as possible." Criminal psychologist Pyo Chang-won analyzed Myung's actions and concluded that this was not a case of sudden loss of control, but a premeditated crime. When confronted by Hanul's grandmother, Myung remained calm, denied everything, and locked the door to conceal the crime. In a February 12th interview, Pyo asserted that this was a calculated act. Prior to the attack, Myung had unlocked the audiovisual room against regulations to facilitate her movements. Security footage captured her observing students leaving, waiting for only Hanul to remain. She had also purchased the weapon during work hours, just hours before the crime, demonstrating deliberate preparation. After committing the murder, instead of seeking justification or help, Myung continued to lie and attempted to delay discovery. Pyo suggested that if Hanul's grandmother had arrived earlier, Myung might have attacked her as well. He dismissed her claim that she had purchased the knife for self-harm, calling it merely an excuse. From a legal standpoint, the decision to reinstate Myung as a teacher has sparked widespread outrage. Despite her long history of mental illness, she was allowed to return to teaching without undergoing a rigorous evaluation. She had been hospitalized for treatment in January 2024. Her condition worsened in September 2024, yet just 3 months later, in December 2024, she was deemed fit to work. With only 3 simple documents, a handwritten reinstatement request, the principal's assessment, and a medical certificate, Myung was granted approval to return to school just 21 days after requesting leave. Shockingly, only 6 weeks after resuming her teaching duties, she murdered a student in her own classroom. One of the most disturbing revelations in this case is the gross negligence of the Teacher Health Assessment Committee, the body responsible for determining teachers' professional competency. Despite Myung's history of mental illness and violent behavior, the committee had never convened to assess her case. In fact, reports indicate that the committee had only met once since 2015, exposing a severe failure in monitoring teachers' mental health. The reinstatement decision has fueled public anger. Many question how a teacher with such erratic and violent behavior was ever allowed to return to the classroom. The lack of a thorough assessment process, failure to report Myung's previous violent incidents, and the absence of timely intervention from education officials are all critical issues that must be addressed. Allowing Myung to return to school was not just an administrative oversight, it was a series of missed opportunities to prevent a completely avoidable tragedy. Kim Ha-neul's life was unjustly taken. Amid a wave of public anger, the South Korean government is urgently implementing the Ha-neul Act, a new regulation allowing schools to require teachers to take a temporary leave if they are deemed mentally unfit to teach. In a statement on February 12, 2025, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education Lee Jo-ho affirmed that the government is taking decisive measures to prevent similar tragedies. He stated that this law will ensure that teachers incapable of safely performing their duties will be suspended from teaching, something that should have been enforced long ago. At the same time addressing public concerns about school security, Minister Lee also announced plans to strengthen safety measures in schools nationwide. Specifically, schools will enforce stricter entry control procedures, improve safety protocols in classrooms and extracurricular activities, and expand mental health support programs for both teachers and students. As news of the tragic incident spread, initial shock quickly turned into outrage. The public demanded an explanation. How was a teacher with a history of mental illness allowed to return to teaching? Why was no intervention taken? How could such a tragedy have happened? People gathered outside the school, holding prayer vigils, placing flowers, drawings, and teddy bears in memory of the victim. The entire nation mourned the loss of a young life, one they had never met, yet deeply grieved. The public called for the disclosure of Myung's identity and demanded accountability for the failures in the system. The heartbreaking tragedy of little Kim Ha-neul exposed serious gaps in teacher mental health management and school safety regulations. The incident revealed the absence of a systematic mechanism to monitor and support teachers' mental well-being, as well as inadequate legal provisions to handle cases posing a potential threat to students. As South Korea mourned its loss, an unexpected controversy erupted, adding to the family's sorrow. The situation began when Ha-neul's father expressed his wish for Yang Won-young, a member of the K-pop group IVE, to attend his daughter's funeral. In an interview on February 12, 2025, he clarified that this was not a demand, but simply a personal wish. Ha-neul had been an ardent fan of Jang Won-young and had always dreamed of becoming a star like her idol. Starship Entertainment, IVE's management company, sent a condolence wreath along with a heartfelt message and a signed photo of Jang Won-young. However, public reactions were divided. Some believed that Jang Won-young should have attended the funeral to show respect, while others criticized Ha-neul's father, accusing him of using his family's tragedy to pressure a celebrity. The backlash on social media became overwhelming for Ha-neul's grieving family. Harsh comments flooded online forums, attacking the father for what some considered an unreasonable request. Others argued that celebrities should not be forced into personal matters unrelated to them. The case will soon go to trial, with evidence overwhelmingly clear. All of South Korea is watching, waiting for justice. But what sentence could ever ease the pain of loss? What verdict could ever bring Ha-neul back? This heartbreaking story serves as a reminder that child safety is not just the responsibility of families or schools. It is a duty shared by society as a whole. We need an education system that not only imparts knowledge but also ensures the holistic development of students, both physically and mentally.